We're delighted to say that this series of Qtr Time podcasts is supported by Carbon Jacked, an environmental startup that helps you combat climate change.
They're an awesome company that provide monthly memberships which plant trees, support epic climate projects, and help you to reduce your carbon footprint.
Memberships start from just £2.50 per month, so you can help save the planet for less than a cup of coffee.
Signing up is super easy. Go to carbonjack.com and enter NetballPod for a huge 30% off. The link is in our show notes. Go check it out.
Hello and welcome to Qtr Time podcast in partnership with Carbon Jacked. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed.
Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 2 of Qtr Time. The 2022 Vitality Netball Superleague season is finally underway after what feels like a lifetime of waiting, Luce. And what an interesting start it was. We had some shock results. We had our first suspension already, our first postponement already, and a significant number of Super League debuts. Overall, there were a number of key talking points from this weekend for us to dig into, Luce. But before we get stuck in, what do we have coming up on today's episode?
So today we'll be digesting all 9 games from the season opener, bringing you our beloved 3-word summaries for each match before moving on to our games and players of the round. Then we'll be joined by none other than ex-England captain, 7-time VNSL champion and a regular on the Sky commentary team, it's Pamela Cookey. We'll be chatting with Pam about her key takeaways from the weekend and some of those crucial talking points to come out of the first 9 matches.
Amazing, exciting stuff. So before we start our 3-word summaries, Luce, what were your overall impressions of the weekend?
I actually thought it was really interesting. I think it was kind of a tale of 2 days and more or less we had predictable results with a couple of surprises thrown in there. I think we saw the effects of a bit of an interrupted preseason with COVID, etc. I think there are a few teams who will find their form and their flow around round 5 or 6, but will it be too late for them at that point to make top 4? Hard to say. I personally can see Thunder going undefeated. I think they were astonishingly good over the weekend, but obviously we haven't seen them tested against another rival top 4 side yet. With the Com Games, I think there's also extra pressure, particularly on the England girls, firstly to impress, but secondly to remain injury-free. We saw a couple of key names, for example, Guthrie and Metcalf, who didn't play this weekend, and you get the sense that even as they recover from injury, they will be load managed in the lead up to the games, which obviously does give some of those younger stars the chance to get in on the action.
Yeah.
What about you, Luce? What did you think?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. If I'm completely honest, hand on heart, I was a little bit disheartened after the first day, and I wasn't expecting there to be such big blowouts across pretty much all of the games on that first day. But the second day was much more of what I was expecting. We had much tighter games, much more competitive games, and I think that was a really good advert for our league, whereas I don't think the first day really was. So yeah, it's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I felt like the first day was a bit of dusting off the cobwebs, and then from the second day we sort of hit the ground running. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so let's dive straight into our 3-word summaries. The first game was Lightning versus Pulse, and I've gone for a snoozy start. like we've mentioned already, it was a bit of a slow start to the 2022 season from both sides in this game. Just neither really able to find their full flow. Pulse were able to match the 2021 season champs for 3 quarters of the game, but they just lost their heads a little bit in quarter 2 and lost that quarter by 7 goals. Lightning were able to look after the ball much better in attack than Pulse were, and they definitely had the upper hand when it came to things like executing the basics. So it was a good job from them.
Next up, it was Bath Sirens, and I've gone for a Bath bombing.
Oh, get out.
Sorry about that. This was quite a tightly contested game for the most part, if you overlook the poor third quarter from Sirens, which was actually 20-9. It was a tough day in the office for Sirens shooting wise, with Goodwin only on 61% and McCall on 77%. But wowza, some of those long bombs were amazing. It was so huge. And she actually shot more in GA than Goodwin in GS, which is a bit unusual, I think, in this day and age. Sirens were quite heavily penalised in this game, with 40 penalties to Bath's 26, which didn't help matters.
Yeah, for sure. Next up was Thunder versus Dragons, and I've gone for goals for days. It was a huge record-breaking scoreline in this game from Thunder with 79 goals. I mean, crikey.
Yikes.
And again, it was another third quarter domination with Thunder scoring 24 to Dragons 10. 24 goals in 15 minutes. Like, that's just exceptional. But what impressed me the most in this game was that Thunder had just 2 unforced errors throughout the entire 60 minutes, which is absolutely outstanding. And Dragons had more than they probably would have liked with 12.
Yeah, I think the other team's probably quaking in their boots a little bit. Nearly 80 goals in one game. Yikes. Next up was Wasps versus Mavericks. And for this one, I said, third's the word. It was an interesting game. I think most people were expecting Mavs to come out on top, and they did fairly convincingly. Another third quarter pasting, 11-20 to Mavericks in this quarter. But it was definitely not the finished article from them. 13 missed shots compared to Wasps 2. I think defensively, Mavericks are looking really hot. And if they can keep themselves settled, they will be really pushing for top 4.
Yeah, definitely. And how great was it to see Quashie and Marshall back in action? That was awesome. Next up was Storm versus Stars, and I've gone for stay in play. It was a really highly penalised game with 50 penalties to Stars and 65 penalties to Storm. And the commentary team characterised it as a bit scrappy, which I think is a fair one. But credit to Stars for being able to dig deep in this game and pull out the win. I'm really interested to see how Storm go when Sophia Kandapa is back in the mix, because we know that she can be super lethal on the feed, and I think that she could really make the difference for them.
For sure. Next up on Sunday, it was Rhinos versus Lightning. Unfortunately, this game was postponed. We'll come back to this a little bit later on in our chat with Pam. Great to see the opportunity for a men's match between Giants and Titans to take place in the arena, although it was a shame this wasn't televised for the viewers at home.
Yeah, in all honesty, that blew my mind that it wasn't televised, because all the setup was there. Everything had them on court. Why couldn't it be televised? That was such a shame. Real missed opportunity there, but hey ho, next time.
Yeah.
So the first game for Sunday then was Wasps versus Sirens, and I've gone for dogged, determined, dangerous. I don't know what it was about this weekend, but the third quarters are absolutely dominating the stats. Wasps are only able to get 6 goals on the board in 15 minutes of netball, which is pretty horrific. But for me, the key takeaway was around both shooting ends. Goodwin was struggling again with her accuracy at just 74%. But at the other end, the combination of Allison in goal shooter and Dunn in goal attack really needs some work for me.
Next up, it was Pulse versus Bath. And for this one, I said, holy freaking moly. This was absolutely exceptional. And I mean, what a game. It was brilliant to have such a close game. And for the typical underdog to come out on top when you consider finishing positions from last season, I have a sneaky suspicion we may be discussing this game in more detail a little bit later on in the episode. To be continued.
Hold that thought. Following that game was Dragons versus Mavericks, and I've gone for Raw Dragons Raw.
Woo!
Dragons might not have got the win, but I am absolutely delighted to see a more competitive Dragons outfit this year. You can clearly see that Danny Titmus-Morris and the new look squad is working really well for them, and I am 99% sure that they will take a scalp this year. For Mavericks, I'm really enjoying the Gibson-McCarthy defensive combo, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that grow throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. Finally, then, on to the last game of the weekend, which was Stars versus Thunder. And for this one, I said, youngsters coming through. It was another big huge scoreline for Thunder, absolutely punishing in the first half and going up by 19 goals at halftime. And in the second half, their younger players really stepped it up. There were also 16 turnovers for Thunder compared to Stars 5. And we saw the awesome Millie Sanders pick up a well-deserved Player of the Match accolade. She was so great when she got that. She was like, me? Really? She was awesome in this game. Thunder got all their available players out on court. I was also really impressed by Lois Pearson, and I'm pleased that she's getting the chance to shine. And I like her in wing attack as well. I think she's a good option there. For Stars, there were a whole heap of changes, and so they struggled to find consistency in their units, and they haven't settled on a 7. Moving on to our games of the round. So, Lucy G, I wonder which one you've selected.
Well, it will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody that I have gone for Pulse versus Bath. Wow. This was such an exciting game of netball. And I actually had a couple of friends message me to say that was possibly one of the best games of netball they've ever watched ever. And I think it really showcased our league in the most positive light we could have hoped for. And yes, I know that Bath were missing the likes of Guthrie and Mawaney, but at the end of the day, you have to play who you can play. And all teams will want to be able to pull a win out of the bag regardless of who's on court, because you never know what's going to happen with injuries and illness, etc. So I'm gonna take the lack of them with a pinch of salt, because Pulse still absolutely killed it. I was really impressed with Pulse in this game because they showed the fight and the consistency most of the time, and the grit that I think that they were missing a bit last year. And I was a little bit sceptical at first, particularly around the attacking end, because I still don't think they've got that experienced, calming influence that I think you need. But fair play, credit where credit's due. Kira Rothwell and Liv Cheen really stepped up in the second half, and they connected beautifully.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I did think there were a few, I guess, naive feeds from Ellie Ratu at times, but give her a couple more years under her belt and I think she'll grow into a real star, like a Guthrie type player. She's so tenacious, defensively minded, and I mean, she's always there pulling out those showstopper moments exactly when you need them.
Yeah, I absolutely love her. I think she's a real hustler and she's got so much potential. The main thing for me in this game, though, was that defensive end. Despite having 38 penalties between the 3 defensive positions compared to Bath's 19, this trio absolutely slayed on court. We all know my love for Fumi Fidoju, but it was the unit as a whole that really shone for me in this game. And they kept Bath to just 2 goals in the first 8 minutes of the game. Like, that's just unheard of. And I think that the combination of Jazz and Fumi in the circle is going to become something really special soon. But also, can we just take a second to acknowledge Jada Pekova and goalkeeper?
Yeah, I mean, at 17 years old, she absolutely showed us what she's all about. 17, that's ridiculous. And exactly why she's in the Roses pathway. Her in GK allowed Fumi more freedom to pick off balls through court, and I really love that because I definitely prefer her in GD or Wing D, but definitely GD. And holy smokes, she did well in GK as well. I mean, is there anything this girl can't do?
I mean, literally no. I mean, stick her in shooter, stick her in centre, guaranteed she will nail it. Overall, I think that this win was actually really important for the league as a whole, because the more unpredictable and the more edge of your seat it is, the better.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And something as well that occurred to me in this game is that neither of the Aussie imports took to court, which was similar last season. We had obviously the 2 star imports in Ziggy Berger and Lefebvre Radaman at Pulse, and they didn't play all of the games as well. And I actually didn't think that McDonald and Honey had a good game on Saturday. I didn't think they were particularly as strong as we saw them in the preseason. So maybe some nerves early doors or just adjusting to the Super League way.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely expecting a bigger impact sort of initially from the pair of them, having come from that Vixens environment, because we know how formidable that sort of setup is. So yeah, that was quite surprising. A couple of key stats for me from this game. I thought it was interesting that Liv Cheen actually shot 81% of Pulse's goals, whereas SDL, Borgia and Creek almost shot a third each for Bath. So there's that kind of heavy reliance on Sheen already in the season. Pulse also had only 8 unforced errors in this game, and they averaged 13 a game last season. So really starting to execute those basics better. And also, of course, Pulse have never beaten Bath before in the Super League. I mean, what a way to make history. It's great.
Massive. Huge.
So, Luce, what game have you gone for?
So I've actually gone for Sirens versus Wasps. I thought this game was a corker, with both teams obviously coming off losses on the Saturday, and they just had a real point to prove. It was a super gritty and determined performance from Sirens particularly, and obviously that third quarter was really the statement piece. We saw how massively the Sirens mentality has changed. When they were down at halftime in previous seasons, they would have potentially dropped their heads, let Wasps dominate, and that would have been that. But not in this game. They just dug their heels in and said, no, ma'am, we are having this game. That being said, though, it was by no means a clinical performance. There were 12 missed shots from Sirens, with Bethan Goodwin only shooting at 65% in this game. And so that is a bit of an area of concern. I think they did miss Emma Barry. Wasps, however, showed patches, I thought, and were totally tenacious in defence, but they were just missing something in the mid-court, that strong leadership, and I think relying a bit too heavily on Iona Christian.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that statement. I think defensively, I loved what Ella Powell-Davis brings to the court, and Sirens really did not look comfortable putting ball over her and Huckle's range. And, you know, that combination hasn't had a lot of time together. So I think with a few more matches under their belt, we're going to see some really great things from that defensive end.
Yeah, I think so. And then kind of up the other end, attacking wise, there's a few kinks to work out there as well. I just don't think Rachel Dunn in GA is doing it for me necessarily. I would really like to see Mel Mansfield persist with Lucy Paris in GA and Alison as your impact change at either GA or GS. Lucy was really strong for patches and just needs more time, in my opinion. Also, great name. And I do think that Dunn needs to be in the circle, as she's such a strong target for the feeders. I thought it was interesting what Tamsin said around Wasps having nothing to lose. They are a really different and new side, so the pressure is off from that perspective. And I think that they will take a scalp this season, and I reckon it will be Mavericks.
Ooh, juicy.
That's my crystal ball prediction.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know whether it will be Mavericks personally, but I do think that the Huckle Powell-Davis combo are definitely going to have teams guessing by sort of middle to end of the season. I think going back to Sirens, they definitely missed Emma Barry and her holding game. And there's no news yet on when she'll be back. But the fact that they can win against Wasp without her is a really, really good sign. I also think that Emily Nicol was exceptional. Her hustling nature really piled the pressure on Wasps, and the partnership between her and Vincumbo is absolutely watertight. It allowed Vincumbo in goalkeeper to pick up all the stats. She had 6 intercepts, 6 turnovers. Like, she was just picking ball off for fun. And again, that third quarter, that was the turning point. It was 14-6 to Sirens. So yeah, massive.
Yeah, in fact, I had a look at this, and actually all bar one of the games in the opening weekend, the team who won the third quarter went on to win the game. And the only exception was that really close Bath Pulse match. And I think there was only 3 or 4 goals in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's that championship quarter thing, isn't it? I'd love to know what the actual science, if there's any actual science behind it, or whether it's just like a intuition feeling.
No, I think it's just they get a kick up the bum from their coach at half time. And then they come out and think, oh, crikey, we better get on with it.
You know what? I think you might be right, actually.
Moving on to our players of the round. Lucy, take it away.
I mean, it would be remiss of me as president of the Fumi Fidoju fan club if I didn't pick her. But
I think she's going to take out a restraining order soon.
Honestly, it's too much. It's too much. But there's no denying, like, she was just sensational.
Yeah.
She had 6 intercepts, 11 deflections, 9 turnovers, and a rebound to her name in the Bath game alone. And then she had another 2 intercepts, 4 deflections, and 7 turnovers in the Lightning game. Like, this kid is just unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I might be a little bit blinkered because of how much I love her, but I really think now is the time you have to ask the question about whether she should be in the squad for Commonwealth Games. She plays across all 3 defensive positions, and she doesn't just play them, she plays them.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure what to expect with her in goalkeeper initially, and I was a little bit like, don't know. But she proved that she is more than competent, and she's just 5'9". Like, she's literally 1 inch taller than me. Okay? And I think when you think of our Rose's defensive players, you would imagine that, Mentor, Gusketh and probably Ebony are dead certs for squad selection. But then when you look at that 4th spot, you've got the likes of Stacey Francis-Bayman, Fran Williams in the mix. I'm really leaning towards having Fidoju in that 4th spot. I think we need to roll the dice, take that chance and let her go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know she's young and we have to safeguard her to an extent, but the fact that she's so capable in all 3 positions and is such an unpredictable player, I think she could really be that spark and that point of difference that would give us the edge over those other teams.
100%. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, it must be difficult being head coach of a national side, but I think now is the time to almost take that risk on her because she's so humble, she's so down to earth and so genuine. Like, I don't think she will disappoint you. And
at a time when she's supported by those really experienced players around her. So she's not going in with other youngsters, she's going in with other people who know their stuff and who can really guide her and hone her.
Yeah, exactly that. So I am just praying to the netball gods that she can remain fit and healthy and injury-free throughout the season, because I think she is a serious, serious Commonwealth Games contender.
Yeah, hard agree.
Who have you gone for, Luce?
So I've gone for another defender and a newbie on the scene. I've gone for Shaquanda Green-Knoll.
Yes.
I thought she was fantastic this weekend. She was undeniably brilliant, and in each game of this round Dragons topped their highest score from 2021, and that was they scored 48 in their win against Storm, and in these 2 games they scored 53 and 54 respectively, and she was a massive part of that. You can also tell she has an instant impact. Against Thunder, 5 intercepts, 3 deflections, 7 turnovers. Against Thunder, very, very impressive. Against Mavericks, 2 interceptions, 4 deflections, and 3 turnovers. Massive, huge impact in your first Super League game ever. Yeah, she was so impressive. And I know we're only just done round 1 and 2, but she's already on the leaderboard for defensive statistics. She's 4th for intercepts, 5th for turnovers, and 3rd for deflections. And I think, like you alluded to just then, when you consider that they've been up against 2 potential top 4 teams, that's really impressive from Dragons. In fact, the only times that they actually entered the leaderboard last year were for the number of goals scored, which was Amy Clinton in 8th, and the most penalties, which was Abby Tyrrell in 6th. So the fact she's already up there, mixing it with the best is incredible. Yeah, she's just got this tenacity, enthusiasm, and I guess fearlessness. It's everything you want from a defender, and she will only grow with more experience. I also really liked what Danny said about her being a player that feeds off the crowd. She's exactly what Dragons need, and it's so exciting to have her in the league. Yeah, I mean, she is such a character. You can see her like dancing away and like living on every call of the umpire. She was incredible to watch. I'm so glad that she's here. Yeah, I can't wait to see her every week. And that's what we need. Personalities on the netball court is what every fan wants to see. Yeah, for sure. Shaquanda, if you're listening and you want to come on the pod, let us know. Give us a bell. Coming up after the break, we chat to England goal attack legend Pamela Cookey about the opening weekend, which teams are pulling ahead already in the season, and some of the big talking points around matchday squad announcements, blowout scores, and questions from you, our lovely listeners. Do you want to help combat climate change? Well, you can by joining Carbon Jacked. We're both members and we love it.
Memberships start from £2.50 and your money goes towards amazing projects, from planting trees in the Peak District to providing refugees with sustainable solar cookers. You can get a huge 30% off by entering Netball Pod when you sign up at carbonjack.com.
Carbon Jacked also do loads of great work with businesses, so get in touch if your company wants to become more sustainable. All the info you need is in the show notes, so make sure you take a look. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined by a true legend of English netball. It's the one and only Pam Cookey. Welcome to the pod, Pam.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a real pleasure, Lucy and Lucy.
It is so great to have you with us to round up the long-awaited 2022 season opener. But before we get stuck into some specific questions, what were your overall thoughts on the weekend?
It was so great that it's all started with such a big bang, and to have that event to kick us off, amazing. First and foremost, fab work to all the event organisers in England Netball and all the Super League teams for even getting there in the first place after the years we've had. So amazing. I thought day one was slow to start, kind of teams just finding their feet and just figuring out combinations and kind of that link from pre-season into the competition. And then day two, wow, just a bang.
Yeah, absolutely. We totally agree with you on that one. And we thought it was a really interesting weekend for quite a number of reasons. There were also quite a few talking points that were brought up by the end of it. And we think the first of these is around some of the scorelines that we saw that you alluded to there. The matches on day two of the opening weekend were generally a lot closer than those on day one. And on Saturday, we saw margins of 11, 14, 26, 9 and 9, with the predicted winners coming out on top in every game if you look at last year's finishing positions. And this is an issue that kind of keeps coming up time and time again. We've discussed it a bit last year on the podcast. And we know that not every game is going to be a one-goal nail-biter, Helen Houseby buzzer beater. But what are your thoughts on some of those scorelines that we've been seeing, particularly with teams being blown out by 20-plus goals?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I think as the years have progressed, the difference in the teams has shortened, it has got smaller, but there are going to be those odd games where it is going to blow up. And we kind of need to, one, appreciate that the team that wins, that they've been consistent for the whole 60 minutes and they've been able to expand that lead. And for the losing team that, for whatever reason, they haven't quite gelled or they're just not quite up to that level at the moment. So for me, the biggest one, like you said, was the Manchester Thunder versus Celtic Dragons. So 79-53, a big margin, but Dragons still put on 53 goals. So they were still able to penetrate that Thunder defence. So if they can work out their defensive end and their structure and their units so that they're not working individually, I think we'll see a lesser gap as the season goes on. But you have to be realistic that there are some teams that are still developing and they're still just not quite at that same level as some of our higher teams.
And what do you think then, blue sky thinking, what would be potential solutions that could help prevent that? Would it be reducing the number of teams, creating a tier system where you've got to spread out all the England players or something like that? What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting when they tried the spread out of England players went way back when I was still playing, and I think it's difficult because netball isn't yet fully professional in England, so I think that is a bit unfair to some of the players, and I don't think you potentially get the results that you're after. I do agree that there needs to be potentially lesser teams in the league because it means that you're not spreading out that talent so thinly, and it gives us a chance to kind of pretty much focus on, say, maybe, I think 8 is a good number personally, but some say 6, some say 10. But I think if we are able to kind of, reduce that number, reduce the spread, and then create that tier system that you mentioned, then we've still got a pathway coming through. And so those that haven't just quite made it, they're still working in a strong environment, ready for when their time is to step up.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And I think also 11's a bit of an awkward number in terms of scheduling, isn't it? I like what you said about 8, like they have in the Suncorp, it's very straightforward, 4 games a week, that's your limit basically. Yeah,
I totally agree with that because I think it adds to the quality of the league and it adds to the quality of the show. So even on production side of things, like the doubleheader this weekend, 9. How many games did we play? Oh, it was so many, I've forgotten now.
This is the thing, though.
Yeah. So in terms of, I think everyone did such a great job to get it on. But if we want to kind of develop it and be that world-beating sport and that world-beating on-court as well as off-court, we need to rationalise and we need to kind of say, okay, this is what we're working at. This is a good number where we can do a really good job on. Let's do that going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about New Zealand, they're only on 6 and their competition is so tight, particularly in the last few years. It's been really unpredictable, you know, which way it's going to go. Whereas in our competition, there's kind of a top half and a bottom half that you can pretty much guarantee even before we begin, I suppose.
Yeah, you can. And I think that where we are now seeing the change is that kind of 4th to 6th position where we're unsure. And so if it did go down to 8, then at least you've got a solid kind of, okay, potentially, you know, 1 or 2, but there's the option that someone could spring out of the box and you don't know. But then it's not every game potentially that you can guess what the end score line is. With New Zealand having 6, we can actually see the strength and depth of all the teams, and there might be 1 or 2 games where you could say, okay, this team's going to win it, but on the whole it's almost kind of, you just come on the day and it's anyone's. And that's why we love sport so much, because you can sit and you watch it and you don't know what the end outcome is and you're surprised and you go through all the highs and lows. I think sometimes with having so many teams and not that quality across the board, you already know before the game started how it's going to go.
Yeah, and I think it can be disheartening for teams if they are miles away from the standard of the teams that they're playing against through no fault of their own, just through circumstance, players that have been signed there. You know, they have to then focus quite a lot on the small wins that they need to get, and actually maybe they would be better off having a separate competition. We discussed previously as well 2 leagues where you had promotion and relegation. English people love that. We're really into it, aren't we, with the football stuff?
Yeah.
So, you know, that could be an angle as well. What do you think of that?
No, I love that idea, and you're right. Like, so when I hated losing, like, and a lot of sports where you don't step out on the court to lose, and so if that's happening week in, week out, your head drops, your kind of love of the sport potentially could kind of go a little bit, because we're all kind of performers. We want to do well. That's kind of why we're elite netballers, because that's our psyche. So to be in that situation where every single game, sometimes before you even start the game, you already know it's going to be a real uphill battle, I don't think it's effective. And so to have kind of that 2 league system, and then as you progress, as you build, as you grow, you've got the opportunity to then go in the top leagues for the lower teams, then I think that can only be of a positive, and it can only strengthen our league.
Yeah, no, really interesting talking about that. If anyone listening, if you've got any thoughts on that, do write in and let us know what you think. What's the future look like? You know, if we had whatever we want, what could it be? Moving on to another one of the major talking points, which was around squad announcements. So we heard really late in the day that Qtr IT was not in the matchday squad for Stars. And as she's obviously such a big name and incredible player to watch, fans were understandably disappointed. And there was also no announcement on socials from Stars about why Kat wasn't in the side. And when asked about this, Melissa Bessel was cagey, in Amrag Bazi's words. We also had Kawanga and Kandapa missing for Storm, Emma Barry for Sirens, Guthrie and Mweni for Bath, numerous others across several teams. So what are your thoughts on the lack of formalised prior announcements about player squads?
From a broadcasting perspective, it's difficult because you then can't. So for me, I would love to have the team sheets like on the 24 hours at least before the game, and then it helps kind of with that prep and who you're gonna see on the court, starting to who you can talk about and the backstories and whatnot. Because otherwise, you're just researching the whole team if you don't already know them. And with so many across the league, so many newbies, which has been fabulous. It's been exciting to get to know them and be able to share those stories with the fans and the viewers. From a coaching, I guess, and a player perspective, they don't want to share that information because it could put them on a back foot to other teams. So if a team comes on board and well, we know Serena Guthrie's not playing today, so we can do X, Y, and Z, and that will help us be more successful. Or we know Kwaranga's not there for as a goal defence for Storm, so potentially our attack can do this and that, but also it's to protect the players. So we know Serena has suffered with glandular fever in the past, and so after the backlog of the quad series, she's just kind of, before letting it go too far, taking some time just to recuperate herself and then to be able to go again and be that amazing player that we know she is. But sometimes you don't want everybody to know that. She shared that with me, and I can say that, but some things they just don't want people to know about. And so I think it's a balance between what's right for the squads and the players, and also what's the fans, because we want to be invested in the game as a fan. We want to know what's going on. We want to be able to share the highs and the lows of the team that we support. And it's not that we're just trying to nitpick or trying to just be really nosy. It's that we just want to feel part of it, and that's what makes our involvement in the sport even better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, although I'm a pretty nosy person, so I do want to nose around at what's going on. But I think in most other sports, it's pretty common to hear about any big outs through injury at least 24 hours before. And that also then in itself becomes news and hype for the game and builds the momentum and expectations. And I think this is an area of our sport that we could really improve on almost instantly, and that would have a massive impact on how the league is received publicly, and would just help us to look a little bit more professional, I suppose, if we had those announcements in a timely fashion, and then, like you say, the commentators weren't caught out at the last minute.
Yeah, totally. And we always talk about making a show of it. So it's not just the stuff that happens on the court. That's the bit that draws us there in the first place. But what keeps people coming back and back again is the whole production. It's the whole backstories. It's the stuff that happens off the court. It's getting to know the players as well as personalities. All that's the big show, isn't it? And that's what we want for netball, and for us to progress going forward and to get more fans watching and to get more people involved and different demographics involved as well. We need to do that bit better, definitely.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. And speaking of those things that happen off the court, another one of the major talking points is obviously about the first game cancellation or postponement, of the series, with Leeds Rhinos having to pull out due to not being able to field 10 players because of COVID, illness, injury, etc. So they couldn't actually field the minimum number of players required out of a possible 18. So for anyone listening, the 18 is made up of the 12 contracted players, 3 training partners, and then 3 training associates, I think they're called. So they only actually had 8 people in total available. And this opened up some really interesting discussions online, particularly on Twitter, around whether Rhinos could or should have played up some of their younger pathway athletes, and also where and when the rescheduled game will be played. So as someone who's obviously had first-hand experience of being a teenager within elite environments, as you were called into the 2002 Commonwealth Games squad at just 18, although sadly I had an injury, so I wasn't able to participate. But having had that first-hand experience, what are your thoughts on the idea of utilising the younger pathway athletes in situations like this? Or do you think it was right for the game to be postponed?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really difficult one. But for me, it would be how I developed was coming in at that young age, being given those opportunities. And even though you are playing in the age groups, you can add something to the senior team. And I think a lot of the squads do bring up their pathway into their training sessions. So it wouldn't be as if like they haven't been involved in that environment and they don't know what the game plan is or where the team wants to go. So I definitely believe it would have been more exciting if we were able to give those youngsters a little bit of a chance. And it's one game potentially where they can come and have an impact. And you never know, like Alicia New came in for 7 Stars. She was a training partner and she's young. She was given an opportunity and she flew on Saturday, like so good. And we could find so many more of those that if you just give them an opportunity, they can then step up, and who knows what the future then might bring.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously we saw Rhinos in Fast 5 as well. They had a number of injuries to their squad, so they had to bring up their under-21 players. So they were sort of able to join the squad for Fast 5, but then not for VNSL. And I find that really interesting, especially as they had 8 players available and they only needed 10. So really, you're only talking about bringing 2 of the younger players up. So it is an interesting one for me as to why that didn't happen.
I guess you kind of, well, the way I thought about it was, well, who were the players that were injured? And if it is your spine, so finally, like if it was a Jade Clark, if it was a Rhea Dixon, if it was one of those that your key players that have been solid over the past season and will bring up and support the youth, if you did bring in some of those under 21 players, then you might then just get a blowout game, which is just not worth watching.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think as well, there's that question around, whether younger pathway athletes are mentally and physically prepared for that step up into the Super League, even if it is only, 1 or 2 games, because pathways can take years to really develop. And, Manchester Thunder have obviously got an exceptional pathway. So we do often see their younger players come up, but Rhinos as not a brand new franchise anymore, but as a young franchise, it might just take them that little bit longer to get that quality of pathway in place. So is it really fair that we're then saying, oh, just bring your under 21s, your under 19s up,
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And as you mentioned, Manchester Thunder, they brought up some of their youth, and we've seen it in previous years, but they've inputted them into a stable structure already. So you've got a Kerry Armand at the back, you've got a Laura Malcolm, you've got Ellie Cardwell, and they got Mvulu at the end, and your youngsters are just kind of slotting in. So they're also playing alongside these established players. And so it makes their introduction into that league a lot easier, rather than, say, having a whole attacking end of your youth, because there is no experience to be able to put with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important consideration, actually. We've mentioned already, the last few years, we've undoubtedly seen the league go from strength to strength. I think we all remember the days where we could only stay up to date by refreshing Twitter furiously. And now we've got 3 games a week being streamed. We've got athletes being sponsored by major sporting brands, and we've got players becoming more like icons. They're more visible in the sort of general non-netballing public eye than ever before. So where do you think that we need to be as a league in 5 years' time?
Oh, it's so amazing where we've come from, and to see the league develop. And I think Sky Sports have been with us from the start, and then year on year they've definitely just upped the game and added more content, added more production to it, added more visibility, and that's helped to get those sponsors on board, because, like I say, if you can see it, you can believe it, and you want to be involved with it. So I think we've been slowly progressing, but now going forward for the next 5 years, I think it just needs something really big and sharp to kind of lift us to that next level. And it is getting that increased investment into the sport, because we are a fabulous product. And as much as I've said, like, the league it would be better, it can always be better. But what we do have now is something that's really tangible, and something that's really grown, and something that people are really invested in, that we want to now get even more into that, so that we can take it to that next level. And that is that fan experience we were talking about earlier. So if we can get more people coming to games, not just for the netball, but for the whole, kind of like an NBA basketball game, where you're at the game 3 hours before it even starts, and you're there at the end 2 hours after, because there's so much going on, but you've come to see those superstar players on court. And if we can make it professional, where the players are paid to play properly, so you're not juggling jobs, you're not juggling life on top of that because you're worried about finances. If we can pay the players like they're worth, then I think we'll get an even better product.
Yeah, 100%. And every time we talk about this, it always comes down to this one thing about people not being paid professionally, because of course you can only get to a certain level if you're having to balance a full-time job, and then you've got a family on top of that, having to come home from that, then go to train. It always comes down to this. So it feels like we're on the precipice of becoming that like fully professional league, but we're not just yet. But what do you think it is? What's going to be that impetus that takes us to that fully professional level? What needs to happen?
It comes down to, as you say, that finance. If players were able to be full-time athletes, and they can train, they can do their analysis, they can do their sports massage and recover properly, they can, nutrition is right, because they're not juggling from getting up early to training, then going to work, then coming back out again to go to training, and not potentially eating well because they've not got enough time, or they're eating on the run. They can spend more time with their combinations. Shooters can spend more time at the post because it's a closed skill, so it's just repetition. If they don't have those worries, financial worries, then and not that the drain on their time because they have to then go and work elsewhere, then that's why wouldn't you improve as a player? Because you've got everything you need to succeed in that one space, and the time and the headspace to focus on that one sport.
Yeah, so we literally just need that one big company to just take a leap of faith with us, because we are guaranteed to bring a return on investment, hands down.
Oh, for sure. I totally believe that. And because look at what we're doing with what we have now. And it's in times way more than some of the professional sports, other professional sports. So imagine where we could be if we had that same resource.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary, actually, isn't it, when you think about it? And speaking of a professional league, 99% of the time, the Suncorp Super Netball is kind of hailed as the pinnacle of netball league success. And comparisons are often made by us, hands up, and by others about how we can kind of get to that level. But if we're playing devil's advocate, is this the right thing to do? For example, I would argue that it would be foolish to take a quote unquote men's sport and then try to replicate the exact same thing for women, because there are a number of differences between men's sport and women's sport, that they're just entirely different products. So should we be doing the same in netball? Should we look to replicate the SSN as best we can in the UK, when actually there are a number of differences in terms of culture, sporting landscapes, like all sorts of things? So should we actually be looking to replicate that?
No, I don't believe we should be looking to copy. I think we have our own, like you say, our own culture, our own brand, our own unique style of players and teams. And I think we should be enhancing that rather than trying to copy someone else. I think if we are able to kind of develop what we have and add those 1%ers, as you always say, that would lift us. We have world-class players coming to our league. We've had Ugandans, we've had Trinidad and Tobago, we've had Jamaicans, we've had some South Africans, and we've have our own world-class, amazing England players that are on our shores and are choosing to stay to play in the Vitality Netball Superleague and not go abroad because they know the quality of it. So let's not copy, let's learn from. So I'm not saying don't look at that at all. Pick out some of the good bits. For me, the super shot is not one.
Yeah, agreed.
Pick out some of the bits that we are really good, and let's enhance ours with a little bit of the best.
Yeah, totally with you on that, completely. And there was a bit of talk online about a comment made in commentary about something around having to travel to Glasgow, with Claire Nelson saying that Sirens have never complained about having to travel long distances. And we're obviously now this year back to having home and away fixtures, which means that not all the games are televised like last year. And Dan Ryan, actually, when he came on the podcast, suggested a roadshow idea of like 3 or 4 central venues up and down the country, and you go and it's a big event and we do these double headers, very exciting. But that would also allow more games to be televised, and although it would remove the home ground advantage. So this could potentially even out the travel side of things, but it may not be perfect. Do you think that the current home and away format is the best option for progressing the league to become fully professional in the coming years?
I thought it was so good last year where we did have those centralised venues, because you know what I said about that fan engagement, you could follow your team from start to finish because you're able to see every single game. And then on the other hand, I do like the home and away because, like you say, we used to talk about the fortress at Team Bath. So when people came to Team Bath, they knew they were going to have a tough game because it was our home. And being able to give the fans that clear kind of close up and personal with you, and them not having to travel, made a massive difference. For me, though, I agree with Dan in terms of if you could have like 3 centralized venues, even if it was just a couple of times a year and you still had the odd home and away games so that the local ones that can't travel can get to them, then that would be really cool, because it just means you can show more games, because we talked about finance, it's not fully there yet. So to be able to put on a proper show week in, week out is only a benefit for us, I think. And I would be disappointed to say people would be worried about traveling to Sirens or annoyed by traveling to Sirens, because it's just what you have to do. They have to travel every single week. So if you're going up there once a year, you can't really complain. And I think, that would be really disappointing if people had said that it was an issue going up there. But their arena, Emirates Arena, amazing. So when we're talking about putting on a show, that's a lovely venue to play at, and one that comes out well on TV too.
I think as well, like when you look at last year in particular, obviously one of the central venues was in London. They had to travel all the way to freaking London, like every single week or whenever it was, to be able to do it. And also if you look at SSN as well, like they literally have to fly across the country to be able to compete. So yeah, I did find it a little bit of a, I don't know, an ignorant comment.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, and like when I played out in the ANZ League, so it was 5 New Zealand teams, 5 Australia teams. So every week I was in Auckland, so I was flying to Australia to different. And so it's just what we've signed up to do. It's our job in a way. So you just get on and do it.
Yeah, definitely. And so finally, to wrap up for today, we're going to move on to some questions from our lovely listeners. So this is actually the first time we've asked for questions, and we've had loads of entries. So big thank you to everyone who wrote in. And we've chosen our favourite questions. So we're going to do it as a rapid fire. Are you ready, Pam?
Okay.
So first up, from Catherine Merry. Not sure if she's a listener, but she did tweet in. So hi, Catherine. Of all the current Super League shooters, who would you most like to be paired with in the shooting circle and why?
So Qtr I've played with at Mystics, and who I think is similar to her is Kim Borgia in terms of their ball handling skills, how they read the play, how they use those tricks, how they get defenders' heads moving and making them go out of place and not have a clue where the ball is going next. And just having a little bit of fun in that circle. So Kat didn't play this weekend, so of someone that did play, it would be Kim Borgia.
Love that. God, the prospect of playing with Qtr would scare the living daylights out of me. She's too terrific, too incredible. Okay, next up from Ruth on Instagram. Apart from Bath and Storm, if you were still playing, what franchise would you want to play for and why?
Oh, amazing question. You know what? It would be London Pulse. And the reason being, so twofold. As a goal attack, I talked about Kim Borgia, Liv Sheen. How amazing youngster is she? So cool, so composed. But again, what I found from her is that her energy, how she lifts the team, whether she's playing or she's on the bench, she's fully invested. And now she's been given that opportunity. She's taken it by both hands. So I'd love to kind of help further develop that from her and be that kind of experienced support as a goal attack. And then their defensive end. Wowzers. So up through the path, they had the amazing Amanda Newton, develop them through their pathway. Now they've got Fiona Murta. You got Lisa Alexander in the mix with Sam Bird. But what that culture that those coaches are creating for them is, I kind of put it to like when we were at Team Bath, like it was the youth being given an experience, given an opportunity, but being kind of helped and cultivated to be the best that they can. So they had that raw talent, we had that kind of energy and that skill, and now it's putting it on the professional stage and they are fully doing it, and it's so exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the amount of talent that they've had go through that franchise, either as a coach or as a player, in the short number of years they've been established is pretty outrageous. It's so impressive. Okay, next up, Jenny from Netball Excellence Training. Who do you think is the coach making the most changes to the quality of the game?
Good.
Really interesting question.
This is a really tough question. So there's some amazing coaches in our league, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of them. I think for me, I'm going to have to go two. I know you said it's a quick fire round, but
go for it.
I just chat. So for me, one, Sam Bird. I saw what she did at Seven Stars she's been at Mavericks and then Seven Stars and now at Pulse. And her thing is developing youth. She has a real passion for helping the young ones come through and be amazing in their own right. And I think what she's now done at Pulse is taking them to that next level. And having an extra team that can work at and challenge those top 4 teams, top 3 teams, is what we need in this game and what we need in the sport. Also, Karen Gregg at Thunder, she, again, developing that pathway, but then what she does for the team when they're on court, it's almost as if she's done everything beforehand. And so they're on court and they know exactly what they're supposed to do. They know exactly what the game plan is. They know exactly what their structures should be. And it seems like if they are having a dip at quarter times or at half times, she just says the right thing and then they come out firing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. The thing that strikes me about both of those is actually the infrastructure that they've got out, like off court. So I think for Thunder in particular, like we always talk about their pathways, like they've done so much work in that. But then for London Pulse, I think they've done so much in terms of trying to professionalize the game and with getting sponsors on board, with generated income. So kind of two different things, but both of them, it's that off court infrastructure that I think is really helping to push the game. So I'd probably agree with both those answers.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like we talked about at the start, it isn't just about what goes on the court. It's about what's around it as well. And not one is more important than the other. And like you've just said, the teams that are really pushing and are really changing the game are the ones that are developing both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Next up, and our final question for you, Pam. So Lily on Instagram said, can you predict the positions of how the league will end based on the Super League opener?
Good question. Wowzers, Lily, you're coming at me now. So, really good question. I think, okay, based on the Super League season opener, you've got Manchester Thunder, Team Bath, Loughborough Lightning, London Pulse, Saracens Mavericks, Strathclyde Sirens. Even though we didn't see them play, but based on paper, Leeds Rhinos, Seven Stars, Wasps Netball, Surrey Storm, Celtic Dragons.
Oh man, that is juicy.
Yeah. Wowzer. Interesting that you've got Wasps down there. I think I have to agree with you on that. Although they were good. Oh yeah, don't know.
They had a good 30-minute game, but they've not yet done a good 60-minute game. Although, I mean, it is only the opening round, but that's what we're basing this on. Yeah. But I love that you've got Pulse up in top 4. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I really think that they will be a force to reckon with, and teams will be afraid of them. I think they'll just develop in confidence. But yeah, like you were saying, in terms of why Wasps down there, it is that 30-minute game solid. But I think they are struggling in that centre position. Hannah Layton, that was moved down to Celtic Dragons, I would have thought she would have stayed and been that linchpin there and that connection with Iona for the Scottish Thistles. But they're still to find their way. As we said, it's still very early stages, and no Super Leaguers won on the first game, as I fully know from my last season before I retired, and then to go on. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really interesting season, an exciting one, which I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
Oh, thank you so much, Pam, for coming on the show. It's been absolutely amazing to listen to your insight, and thank you for answering all of our tough questions as well. So yeah, really, really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been really good fun. And yeah, I keep listening to you. You're doing a really good job.
So that's amazing. Thank you. Love that. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
What a lovely interview with Pam. She is so great, isn't it? It was really, really nice chatting with her. Yeah, she's such a good egg. I really think that. So this season, we've teamed up with Sideline TV to pick our Showdown of the week. So before we wrap up, we're going to take a look ahead to the next week of matches, which is round 3 of the Vitality Netball Superleague. So in this segment, we're going to highlight 2 key players that we really can't wait to see. What are we looking at this week, Luce?
Yeah, so this was actually really difficult to pick. It was a choice between Pulse versus Mavs and Rhinos versus Bath, but we've gone for the Rhinos versus Bath game, and in particular, Layla Gusketh on Rhea Dixon. Now, we've chosen this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we don't know what this Rhinos outfit is going to look like. There's so much anticipation because of the postponement of their first game. So we're absolutely itching to see what they can bring to court. But secondly, Bath are coming off the back of that loss against Pulse. So they are wounded and they are going to be out for blood. And I think that this is, again, they'll absolutely want to win. So I think that kind of just pipped it for us over the Mavs and Pulse game. But honourable mention to them. I think that's going to be an absolute corker, particularly if you bear in mind that Pulse have actually denied Mavs a top 4 position, I think, for the last 2 seasons in a row. So really, really interesting matchup. But yeah, for us, it's Bath versus Rhinos, and it's Layla Gusketh on Rhea Dixon.
Exciting stuff. Well, let us know what you think by heading to our socials, and don't forget to tag @sideline.tv.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Qtr Time. We honestly cannot wait to bring you more netball chat and a roundup of round 3 next week, along with another super special guest interview.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media at Qtr Time Pod for the latest netball updates. Get involved in the conversation online by letting us know what you thought of the matches this weekend and which players have stood out for you.
We'd also really, really appreciate it if you could just take a second to rate and review, as it helps other people to find the podcast. If you enjoy listening to us, do let us know. Spread the word with your netball mates so even more people can get involved in the conversation. Don't forget to also check out our wonderful partners, Carbon Jacked, and take advantage of the exclusive 30% discount on their memberships using the code NetballPod. Take care, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.